Classification. This is a virtual curriculum for grades 5 and above. In this deck, students will learn what living organisms entail and how to group them. Some of the skills acquired are to understand early classification methods, learn how living organisms adapt to their environment, and comprehend the history behind classification.
What is classification? Classification is the grouping of organisms due to their genetic natures and physical characteristics. Scientists classify organisms to easily study the diversity of life and quickly classify new species. You might be wondering, what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is a scientific study of organizing and classifying organisms. Different taxa, or classification sublevels, help to classify organisms. Who created the first classification system? The first classification system was created by Aristotle. Aristotle was the first person in history to ever classify, and he used two subcategories, animals and plants. Aristotle was a major philosopher at the time and came up with the most astounding ideas. Who created the current classification system? The current classification system was created by Carolus Linnaeus. Linnaeus expanded on Aristotle's ideas and grouped organisms based on observable features and later genetic identities. Linnaeus also created the Binomial Nomenclature, a two-part scientific naming system, and he also aided in the 8 levels of classification. You will learn about both of these later on in the slideshow. As a fun fact, Carolus Linnaeus was a Swedish botanist. A botanist is someone who studies plants. How do you classify organisms today? Organisms today are organized through the 8 levels of classification. Each level is known as a taxon, or classification sublevel, and they span from the most broad taxas at the top of the inverted pyramid to the most specific at the bottom. You can see this on the right. These are the 8 levels of classification: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. All 8 of these categories span from the greatest number of organisms to the least number of organisms, as you can see on the diagram. Because there are 8 levels of classification, it may be difficult to remember all of them in their order. Here is an acronym to help you remember the 8 levels of classification: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species can be remembered with the acronym. Did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? This lists all 8 levels of classification in order from most broad to most specific.
The domain. What is a domain? A domain is the first level in the taxonomy pyramid, and it differentiates organisms by their cell type. There are 3 groups: archaea, eukarya, and bacteria. So, where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? The domain stands for the first D, since it is the first level. The kingdom. What is a kingdom? A kingdom is the second level in the taxonomy pyramid, and it differentiates organisms by their unique cellular features. There are 6 groups: Archaeobacteria, Eubacteria, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia. As you can see, Eukarya groups into the 4 kingdoms: Plantae, Animalia, fungi, and protista. Archaea directly leads to archaebacteria, and bacteria directly leads to eubacteria. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It stands for the K, since it is the second level in the taxonomy pyramid. The phylum or phyla. What is a phylum? A phylum is a group of organisms that are categorized together based on common features. For example, chordates or chordata are all animals with a spine. However, they all might look different. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the P, or the third word in the acronym, since it is in the third level of the taxonomy pyramid. Here are some of the various phyla. The class. What is a class? Classes are also another way to group organisms, but this time they already have to be within the same phyla. For each phylum, there are more than 50 plus classes. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the first letter of the fourth word in the acronym, since it is the fourth level in the taxonomy pyramid. The order. What is an order? The order helps further categorize the plants and animals in their given classes. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the first letter of the fifth word in the acronym, since the order is the fifth level of the taxonomy pyramid. The family. What is a family? Families are a more simplified and specific group of the people or organisms in the same order. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the first letter of the sixth word in the acronym, because it is the sixth level in the taxonomy pyramid. The genus. What is a genus? The genus is one of the levels of the taxonomy pyramid that the animal or organism is mainly recognized for. It is the first part of the scientific name in binomial nomenclature. We will talk about binomial nomenclature later in this lesson. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the first letter of the seventh word in the acronym because it is the seventh level in the taxonomy pyramid. Lastly, we have the species. What is a species? A species is the most specific group and the lowest level in the taxonomy pyramid. Organisms in the same species share almost identical traits due to their relationships. Where is it in the acronym? Did King Philip come over for Great Spaghetti? It is the first letter of the eighth word in the acronym because it is the eighth level of the taxonomy pyramid. Binomial nomenclature. What is binomial nomenclature? It's a rule for naming based on the genus and species of an organism, and it was made by Carolus Linnaeus. Here are the rules. While typing, the name must be written in italics, but when writing, in cursive or underline. The genus, which comes first, its first letter is always capital, and the species, which comes second, its first letter is always lowercase. For example, we can take a look at the pebblegram. It can be written this way or this way. It's review time. Correctly capitalize or rewrite the scientific names of these animals in binomial nomenclature.
How do you depict classification? You can depict and distinguish relationships between organisms through two different kinds of diagrams, dichotomous keys and cladograms. Dichotomous keys help distinguish between different species that have already been classified. These keys describe physical characteristics, and you follow the statements down the key until it gives you a scientific name or organism. Cladograms, on the other hand, depict relationships of derived characteristics among organisms. They show how organisms branch off from one another during evolution, almost like a family tree. Here is an example of a dichotomous key. Follow the key's directions while matching the physical characteristics of the organism. This should lead you to the scientific name of the organism. Now, let's review what you learned about dichotomous keys. Use the dichotomous key below to find the scientific name for bird W. If the bird you got is Geospiza, you are correct. Now let's try another problem. Use the dichotomous key below to find the scientific name for bird Z. If the answer you got is Camarhynchus, you are correct. Here is an example of a cladogram. Follow the cladogram down the branches to see how the different species were created from unique characteristics. Cladograms are unique as they show evolutionary changes in organisms that may even be extinct. Organisms closer together on the cladogram indicate closer ancestors. Now, let's review what you learned about cladograms. Which animal below has the closest relative to the chimp? If the answer you chose is mouse, you are correct. Here are some key terms you should know. Classification. Classification is the arrangement of organisms into orderly groups based on their similarities and presumed evolutionary relationships. Taxonomy. Taxonomy is the science of identifying, classifying, and naming living things. Taxa. Taxa are the levels of classification in which all the members have certain traits in common. Carolus Linnaeus. Carolus Linnaeus is the father of modern-day taxonomy, who developed the study of classification and taxonomy. Binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature is the scientific naming system using the genus and species taxa. Dichotomous key. Dichotomous key is a key identifying unknown organisms through descriptive statements. Cladogram. A cladogram is a branching diagram showing evolutionary relationships.
Here is the appendix. We have some notes, practice, games, and other resources to help you better understand this lesson. About the authors. This presentation was made by Shreya Rambad and Smira Nanda.